Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt tension? Or maybe it was birthday party and you felt excitement and joy. If so, you've experienced something called co-regulation. Today, we're diving into what it means, how it works, and how we can use this concept to protect our own nervous system while helping others regulate as well. Welcome to Burnout Solutions, a podcast designed to help high achievers and healthcare professionals understand stress and how it can lead to burnout. Together, we'll explore how your brain and nervous system naturally work and why they sometimes hold you back, and how to overcome those challenges to fully enjoy the success you've worked so hard to create. I am your host, Mona Tippett, registered nurse, burnout coach, and resiliency educator. Hello, and welcome back to Burnout Solutions. Today, we are diving right into the topic of co-regulation, and this is just a concept that kept coming back to me while I was recording last week's episode on the window of tolerance. And these ideas really overlap because when we talk about regulation, dysregulation, and being regulated, co-regulation is always part of the picture. And if you've been around me recently, you know that I use the terms regulated and dysregulated a lot. And I realized how unfamiliar these words can be. Just the other day, I was chatting with a friend who just happens to be in healthcare. And I told him, I just really admire that you are so well regulated. And he laughed and he said, I don't even know what that means. Is that a compliment? Is it not? And I said, no, this is a compliment. And no, it's not his fault for not understanding. And then I just explained, you're just calm, you're collected, and your voice is steady, and you just bring a soothing presence into the room. And, that energy is just really powerful, especially in healthcare. His nervous system helped regulate the environment for his patients and myself without him really even realizing it. And we're going to come back to the healthcare setting a little bit later in this episode. But I wanted to start out exploring what co-regulation actually is and why it matters so much. At its simplest, co-regulation is a biological and emotional process where one person's nervous system influences another. It's a shared emotional experience where two people help each other stay regulated. And I like to think of this as a dance. So it's back and forth energy, presence, and support. And when one person can stay calm and grounded, they can help another person navigate a challenging emotion. Also, when one person is dysregulated, like if they're anxious, angry, overwhelmed, that energy can also spread. So co-regulation works both ways. It can spread dysregulation and it can spread regulation. And this is all just totally normal. We are very social creatures as humans, and our nervous systems are wired to sync with other people. It's automatic. And this is just what humans do. It actually starts in infancy. And remember last week when I talked about nervous system blueprints? Well, between birth and around age 7 or 8, our nervous systems are just forming. They're doing a lot of downloading. And during that time, we rely heavily on the adults around us to model emotional regulation. Through these early relationships, we learn what normal is, what a normal world is, what relationships look like. We also learn what is safe and what is not safe. So co-regulation in childhood lays the groundwork for our emotional health, our safety, and our self-regulation in adulthood. And it's just super interesting to me that often when adults get overstressed, they revert back to their earliest experiences with nervous systems. And they often go to patterns that they learned as a child or patterns that they saw modeled to us. So when you do something, you're like, I'm acting just like my mom. That is very normal because that is an ingrained nervous system pattern from infancy. You may have noticed that anxious parents often have anxious children, or depressed parents have depressed children. And part of that is because as infants, toddlers, and children, we see what our parents are doing and modeling, and we see that as being normal. We see that their emotional state is normal in our world. And so that inscribes in us, and then we start modeling that same behavior. So when I talk about co regulation, with my clients. Obviously, it is from one adult to another, but I want to talk about how co regulation is like a dance, and it almost is more helpful if I can tell it in a way of an adult with a child. And I'm going to tell a story from labor and delivery. So one night I was working a night shift and I was called to help with a fussy newborn. I was just sitting at the desk and a panicked dad just rushed out of the room and said, "Nurse, nurse, I need a nurse." And his face looked very concerned. And, we almost ran back to the room. And as we were going there, I said, "Okay, what's wrong? What's going on?" And he's like, "Oh, my baby, she won't stop crying." So I went into the room. The mom looked frightened. The dad clearly was overwhelmed and panicked. And I gently picked up the baby. I started bouncing her. I was repositioning her. I was, doing the newborn baby dance. She was still crying, so I checked her diaper. She was fine. I wrapped her back up. I offered her a pacifier. That didn't work. I continued to bounce around and just walk around the room and kept moving. And within a minute or so, she had settled down. And I will never forget the look on their face. It was relief. It was calm. And they half joked, "Can you please just come home with us?" And it was just such a sweet moment and a very common one. And I assured them that they too would learn how to soothe their baby and that would come in time. And I gave them some ideas of what to do to help their baby. And that was just an example of co-regulation in action. It was a dance. The baby cried. I responded. Her distress activated my nervous system, and I responded with a calm, predictable soothing. And that's how we help babies regulate. Now, this regulation continues when you're at home. And when a baby cries, we can be sleeping, we could be in the next room, or we could be right next to them. And our nervous systems respond to theirs. The baby cries because they have an increase of energy from something that is dysregulating them. They're tired, they're hungry, they're hot. That increase in their energy activates something in us and brings us to them. And then it becomes our job to settle them because they do not have the capacity to regulate themselves. And so as an adult, it is our job to help bring both of us to balance. So, we check the usual things: hungry, tired, are they wet? Are they too warm? Are they too cold? Are they understimulated? Are they overstimulated? And, now we have bouncy seats and swings and massagers and all sorts of tools to help babies feel a little bit more regulated. Um, as a parent, I often took my babies on a car drive, or I would put them in the laundry room and turn on the dryer so they could hear the rhythmic sound of a dryer. Rocking chairs help. Anything that is rhythmic and rocking helps us calm down a baby. And eventually, as a parent, you learn to recognize the different types of cries that your baby has. You can look at their face and say, "Oh, they look tired. Oh, that's the hungry cry." And you know how to respond. As they grow into toddlers, we continuously need to support them. So, for example, when a toddler skins their knee and starts to cry, we respond. We run to them. We scoop them up and say, "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry you fell. That hurts." It's okay to cry when our body gets hurt. We offer comfort. We offer a hug. We even give them a kiss. And what we're doing without even realizing it is helping them return to regulation. We are conveying to them, "You are safe. You are not alone. It's okay to feel what you're feeling, and I can help you through it. And I can help you calm down and understand that this is not an emergency. This is okay." Now, perhaps, and more likely than not, While you were growing up, co regulation went awry. And sometimes when you fell down, you were met with a kind of response that maybe wasn't calming. And maybe somebody said, "Oh, just stop crying. You're fine." Or "Big boys don't cry." Or maybe a caregiver reacted with panic themselves. And this is not to shame anybody. All parents are human, and we all bring our own nervous system patterns into how we respond. But when a child's distress is met with dismissal, confusion, or anxiety from a caregiver, it teaches their nervous system something different about what to expect from the world and from emotions. And again, this is how our blueprint is made. So anxious parents often help children see things from an anxious lens. So that's why, as adults, one of the greatest gifts we can offer people around us and our children is to be a regulated presence. Now, this takes practice. And now that I found this information, I know what it's like to be a regulated person. I talked a little bit about the temperature last week with the window of tolerance. And as an adult, we want to be the thermostat, not the thermometer. So the thermometer just reflects the temperature of the room. It reacts. It says how hot it is or how cold it is. The thermostat, on the other hand, sets the tone. It says, "Oh, it's a little too hot, so let's cool it down." It adjusts the environment to be more comfortable. So when we co-regulate, we want to help somebody return to their window of tolerance, and we want them to know, "Hey, you're okay. There's nothing dangerous here. I'm here to help you, and this doesn't have to be an emergency." And, if it is an emergency, we help them take action, but we do so from a regulated place. One of the most important things to remember is that we cannot be dysregulated and expect to regulate somebody else. It just doesn't work that way. You can't yell at somebody to calm down. Regulation doesn't come through demanding, through insisting, through punishing, through mocking. It comes through modeling. It comes through a feeling, and it needs to be felt, not just explained. So the real goal of being a regulated adult is this: having one foot in our own grounded state and the other foot connected to the other person's emotional state. And we can say, "I feel you, I'm here with you in this activated energy, and I can help soothe myself and support you too. Your dysregulation is not going to dysregulate me." Just think back to the parent trying to soothe the crying baby. If the baby keeps escalating, which they often do, sometimes the parent's stress often rises. And in that moment, the best thing might be to hand the baby to another adult and take a break, step away, help yourself breathe, reset, get back to regulation, and then you can come back to the baby when you are ready to help. And that's just the dance of co-regulation. And it's mostly unconscious. It's a rhythmic flow of energy, up and down, up and down. Our energy rises with the other person's activation, and then we guide both of us back to a state of being safe and calm. The goal is, again, to help others feel safe, connected, and calm. And I understand that this is a lot easier said than done. And the goal is really, as a child or anyone, to have repeated experiences of co-regulation that are helpful. And as we have experiences of co-regulation, then we can start to have our own ability to self-regulate. Self-regulating is just internal co-regulation. It's when we can feel an activation of energy and we can calm and soothe ourselves and bring us back into our own window of tolerance. Okay, so let's pivot into healthcare. As healthcare professionals, we are expected to be the calm in the storm. We're surrounded by pain, panic, unpredictability, high emotions. Nobody wants to come to the hospital. Nobody wants to go to the dentist. Nobody wants to get an MRI done. No one likes showing up to the ER because we don't feel well. We're in pain. We feel sick. And as healthcare professionals, While we do aim to stay calm, capable, and grounded, it's also okay to be very human. And I want to say that we are expected to be superhumans, but it is okay to feel frustrated, stressed, and overwhelmed. And that is totally normal. I also want you to know that as healthcare workers, we are exposed to dysregulation more frequently than most people because we are in constant contact with patients in distress, families in fear, emergencies, painful procedures, even in labor and delivery, which I loved. There was so much joy there. There's also a lot of pain and intensity and vulnerability for patients. And because of the exposure that we see in healthcare, our own nervous systems become more vulnerable and we can burn out faster. We can absorb the trauma from other people, and this is called secondary or tertiary traumatic stress. And this is why I'm so passionate about helping healthcare workers and really anyone in the caregiving profession just to understand how to protect their regulation and build their nervous system resilience. Because here is the truth, we cannot pour from an empty cup. And while staying regulated when others aren't can feel like a tall order, I know that it is possible and it's transformational when we can remain grounded in all of the chaos. I like to think of us as being animals grazing in the Serengeti, and a twig snaps, and all the antelope lift up their head in a panic to look. And we, as being regulated, we can look, we can assess, but then we just keep grazing because it's not a lion, it's just a twig. There's nothing dangerous. And because we are calm, it helps everybody else in the herd feel calm and realize that they too can relax. My husband is a pediatrician, and one of the things I admire most about him is his ability to stay calm and regulated in nearly any situation. His staff loves working with him because he's so emotionally steady and aware, and he does not get riled up easily. And his presence helps others, and especially myself, stay regulated. So let's talk next about how we can help others stay regulated, whether we're dealing with work, professional life, or just ourselves and our personal relationships. And I want to start out with just a reminder that our nervous system is scanning for cues of safety and protection. And this happens 12 times per second. It's looking at what's happening on the inside of us and how we're feeling. It's looking on the outside of us and taking in cues. And then it's looking at relationally where we are in relation to other people or in areas of calm or danger. So much of this is nonverbal. And let's just talk about some of the co-regulation tools that can send cues of safety. So the first one I want to talk about is your tone of voice. Are you speaking warmly, rhythmically, with calm and reassurance? Or is your tone sharp, shrill, rushed, angry? A lot of times urgency is needed, but even then, a confident and calm tone can carry a message more effectively. The second one is just our body language. Think about, are your shoulders relaxed? Is your posture open? Are your eyes soft? It's been proven that even a small head tilt can convey safety. I think about the time during COVID when we wore masks and our facial expressions were really hidden. And so our eyes had to do all the communicating. And you can tell a lot from people's eyes, but it is hard. And during COVID, we longed to connect with other people, but there was fear. We didn't want to get close to people. We didn't want to touch things that they had touched. And so it was this unnatural way of longing to connect, but we were scared to. And thankfully, that time has passed. But I learned just how powerful nonverbal communication really is and how much I missed it during that time. The third thing that we can do is monitor our breathing. Our breath is a signal, and when we can exhale longer than we inhale, we tell our bodies and other people's bodies that it's okay to calm down. So just regulating our breath. Others can begin to match it to ours unconsciously. It's a really powerful way to help ease the tension in the room. The fourth thing is physical presence and just being near somebody, just being able to make eye contact, just giving them your full attention can create connection. And I like to remind myself attention is connection and it happens in moments. Co regulation really is moment by moment. It doesn't take a lot of time, it just takes seconds added up. But also, I do want you to be mindful that some people don't want your physical presence there and can feel more dysregulated with them there. So if they need their space, that's okay too. The fifth one that I thought about was digital communication. We live in a world where we're texting a lot and emailing a lot, and a lot of our communication is not in person. And so tone and nonverbal cues can be misinterpreted. They can be perceived incorrectly. So without a voice or body language, somebody else's brain fills in the gaps and not always in a positive way. So just be aware of how easily misunderstandings happen in digital messages, which is why I really like being able to send a voice message because they can hear my intonation. They can understand, hopefully, behind the words what I'm trying to convey. And again, emojis, they've helped also communicate the emotion behind our digital messages. The other thing that we can do is remember that our other senses can help us become more regulated. Taste and smell are huge. This is why we love to emotionally eat, right? A big dose of sugar can give us a big dose of dopamine that can help calm us down in the moment. And it doesn't help long term. And a lot of people use emotional eating as a buffer for emotional regulation, but it is something that in the moment can work quickly. Drinking something that's really cold, putting a cold pack on your neck or on your face, or drinking even something hot, something that can help us come back to the presence by breaking up the energy and even smelling something really strong. When my kids are having a hard time, I like to have them jump on a trampoline, just going outside and taking a brisk walk, getting into fresh air that's cold. Something like that can really help your nervous system take a break and use your other senses to help regulate. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about next is how can we help somebody who is actually dysregulated in the moment? This can happen with a patient that's upset, a patient's family member that's upset, or a toddler or a teenager. And what can we do in that moment? And these are just a few things. I have 3 of my 4 kids right now are teenagers. So we have a lot of dysregulation around our house, and it's great. So let's just say that a teenager storms into the room and they're yelling, they're upset, they're in full fight or flight mode. And a temptation as an adult is to be like, okay, 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 just calm down. But telling them or yelling at them to calm down or being dysregulated with them rarely helps. So instead, these are some things you can try. The first is to match their energy, but not their emotion. So we still have our foot in our regulated area, but we match the energy and say, whoa, wow, I hear you. You sound really upset. Those are really big words. Are you feeling angry? What's going on? In that phrase, I named an emotion. And with my coaching clients, we talk about naming it to tame it. So when you can label the emotion, you sound really frustrated. I totally get that. You sound really sad right now. What's going on? And just by naming the emotion helps validate somebody and helps them name what they're feeling. And we're not trying to fix their problem. We're just helping their nervous system feel seen and safe and validated in the moment. So just naming the emotion can be helpful. The other thing that sometimes works is to narrate what's going on. And I have started doing this with myself. Wow, I can tell that my breathing is really fast. Wow, my fists are really clenched. I can feel my jaw is really tight. And this narrating can help others and myself connect to my body and help me and others pay attention and help them come to the present moment. So just narrating what we see, narrating in a regulated way what's going on can help identify the moment, because when someone's dysregulated, we want them to come back to the here and now. The other thing is to offer nonverbal support. Hand them a drink of water and say, "Can I get you something? What do you need right now?" Just being a calm presence, just being a listener, just being a soundboard, just sitting there in silence. And often when somebody else tells you to shut up, well, that is a cue. So try and pay attention to the dysregulation behind the words and try not to get offended by them, because if you are talking, your words are not helping. They are not able to process language and cues of safety when they are in full-blown dysregulation. I like to think of it as you're talking to somebody on a cell phone and the other person is in the basement or in a parking garage. And although you are talking clearly and logically, they only hear static. They only hear every other word. And that's because their logical brain is offline. And so during a time of dysregulation, it is not a time to explain or lecture or dish out punishments or consequences. What we want to do is we want to help them back into their window of tolerance. And once they are in their window of tolerance, then we can have a conversation. So it's often better to just come back later and say, "Okay, so what happened there?" We don't have to say the perfect thing. We just want to model being a regulated person. We just want to have a grounded presence in the room. So how can we strengthen our own regulation? Because if we want to show up in a regulated way, which I think most of us do, it can take some practice on our own to keep ourselves in our own window of tolerance and to keep showing up regulated. And these moments can just add up throughout the day. Like I said, regulation happens in moments, connection happens in moments. And so now we connect to ourselves and help regulate our own energy. So during the day, step outside, feel the sun. Step outside, feel the coldness. Wear bare feet on walking on grass. When we take a drink of water, what is the temperature? Actually think about it going down your throat. Feel it in your body. When you're eating, don't eat your food super fast. I remember when my husband was in residency and I was working as a nurse, we would get home and I kid you not, we could finish a meal in like 2 minutes. And that is just eating in fight or flight. So slow down, savor your food. Think of the textures, think of the flavors, think of the smoothness, think of the spices. Anything we can do to pay attention to the moment will help us. Also, practice gratitude. Gratitude has the highest vibrational energy. So the more we can practice gratitude, it helps raise our emotional vibration. So while I am driving, I like to point out things that I think are beautiful or things that I'm thankful for and say them out loud. Point out things to the people around me. "Oh, look how beautiful that sunrise is. Wow, look at the pretty trees and the blossoms on them." Anything we can do to show our gratitude, say thank you to our cashiers at the grocery store, look at people in the eyes, smile, anything that we can do to help fill our own cup by paying attention to the beautiful world around us. Also, pets can be incredible co-regulators. So can just being in nature, taking a walk, lying on the grass. Like I said before, walking barefoot. Those small, simple moments can support our nervous system more than you might think. Also, pay attention to who your co-regulators are. If you can offload stress with safe people after a shift or after a long day, let your systems be heard and witnessed. I really encourage you to notice the people who do help you feel more safe and grounded and calm just by being around them and spend more time with them. So I just wanted to wrap up and say that co-regulation really is a gift that we can offer ourselves and other people. And it's not a burden. It's really a lifeline that we as humans rely on each other for. And please know that when you tend to your own nervous system, you naturally help tend to others. And this has been huge in my life. I've said this before, but I have learned how to self regulate more consistently. And I have seen that ripple out in my relationships, especially in my family and with those that I love most. This really is what brought me into this work, and understanding my nervous system and learning how to stop it from hijacking my behavior has changed everything in my life. So, this week, I invite you to try just one co regulation practice. Just do something small and doable. And if you had success, I'd love to hear about it. I love hearing your stories. And just remember that co regulation isn't just a concept. It really is something that I encourage you to practice every day, and it does make a difference. So take care of your nervous system this week, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for tuning in to Burnout Solutions. If you found today's episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I would appreciate it if you could rate and review so other people can find this podcast easier. And when you're ready to stop working harder and start working differently, head on over to my website at www.monatippets.com. That's TIPPETS. And grab my free resources on rewiring your brain and nervous system for less stress and more ease. Hope to connect with you soon. Take care.